TANTRIC6 explained. A lot of mystery behind it, and a lot of confusion and incorrect understandings. And I tried my best to find, some reasonable answers, that are out there, but I found nothing available. And of course, I have some knowledge about this, and I want to uh, clarify the situation so that it brings about proper understanding and not be corrupted the way it currently is. And hopefully, I will be able to achieve that in this video. Those of you like the contents of my video, please don't forget to also like and subscribe to my channel. This will greatly help my channel to be able to reach out to more people. And if you could also drop a comment, I would love to hear from you. And if you could also, share this video with your favorite social media channels, that will be an extra bonus that I would very highly appreciate and will help this channel a lot. And it will be a great thing that you'll be doing not only for me, for all the people who would benefit from this type of knowledge. So, for those of you who don't know me, I am Osman, hashtag the blind Muslim yogi, and I am a bioenergy healer on a master level with telepathic healing capabilities. And I specialize in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses, amongst a host of other physiological, psychological, and even spiritual ailments. I'm also an advanced level yoga and meditation teacher. I've been practicing this art form for almost 50 years and teaching now for almost 46 years. In that period, I've studied under various masters from different schools of thought, from different cultures, from different parts of the globe, or across the globe, from the Far East, the Middle East, the West, and including the scientific communities. And what I've done with all my knowledge is created my own unique protocols, and basically making them adapted for the 21st century, making them quicker, easier, faster, more time efficient, and results oriented. To that end, I now have students in over 100 countries, and my favorite protocol is my 5-minute yoga and meditation program, which you can download for free by visiting my website, yogawellness786.com. And please remember that my therapies are all natural based and not a replacement for medical treatment. So, the information I'm about to give and the explanation is not explicitly and openly mentioned in a very clear manner, and this is what leads to confusion about what the element of sex in Tantra actually is. And it is used as a form of a sexual activity and enticement for people to engage in. And they just mention, peripheral things that you must be, you must have passed certain stages. And once you've passed the stages, then, your partner and you're doing it, firstly as a sacrifice to the goddess. And, this is not helping, this type of, justification and explanation from my perspective shows that these people don't know what is the sexual element in Tantra all about. So let's come to common cause, right? When you get into Tantric practice, the entry into it, no matter which of the goddesses there are the 10 Mahavidyas, or the 10 goddesses, of Tantra, and or the major goddesses of Tantra, or commonly termed goddesses. And for anyone that you take any part, the commencement, the first stage is celibacy, right? You have to observe celibacy in the beginning. So, and also before coming to the tantric practices, they said there's about 7 levels before you come to the level where the sex element is. So in the previous, I cannot remember the levels in order, But there's a general level where you observe celibacy and following normal, daily practices and disciplines, and mantra practice and so forth. As you advance, then there is a Vishnu aspect, and then another level is a Shiva aspect, and you have to transcend to the levels. And then these, in all these levels, they are called the right hand way, where it is observed with a sattvic or vegetarian diet. There's no alcohol involved, and no drugs or smoking or anything of that matter. It's very traditional to the traditional monastic type of or religious, the common known religious type of the monastic order, or even if the people are married as well, following like normal observances, what one would expect in prayer, involving no meat eating, vegetarian diet and fasting, and strict observances and so forth, and just normal type of prayer and puja, and all these things involved, right? So eventually, when you reach the tantric stage, the higher level, so your teacher or you will then have to switch over from the right side to the left. So there are 5 practices on the left, which is opposite. So now you're vegetarian and you didn't have alcohol and everything up to that level. Now, according to the theory, right, you allowed, or you should now make animal sacrifice to the deity, eat the meat that was sacrificed, and eat fish. You can offer fish and eat fish, and then also offer alcohol and eat alcohol. That's the fourth thing, and the fifth thing is offering the sexual element, right? So immediately people interested. Okay, this is now meat and making animal sacrifice. This is like a cult, and offering alcohol and drinking, and when you observe some of these people who's practicing, they are drunk, and although they say some people, they when they drink, like, they don't get drunk from this, and they offering prayer while drinking the offered, and it's like prasadam and so forth. So I mean, due respect to all that, that's their culture, and the belief system and so forth. But the important element that you're forgetting is, or what you had to pass before coming to that stage. So before you start the tantric level of the Mahavidyas, you know you have to understand that this is a very powerful method of mantra that is designed to fast forward the activation of the kundalini energy, right? So no one calls it the kundalini. It is just that they say the goddess awakes in you and fully manifests in your body and rises up your spine, right? So that is commonly termed, if we call a spade, a spoon, well, that's the Kundalini energy, right? But it assumes the form of the mantra or the goddess, whichever one of the 10, goddesses that you choose, assume that form, when one realizes it. So you, before going to the left wing, the meat and sacrifice, you must already be on a level that's elevated. The Kundalini is fully awakened and arisen completely to the top, and your body is completely energized and transformed. And now you should not have a bias between what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. You must be able to do either way and be neutral. And if you're going to consume meat and so forth, it should not affect you adversely. So I've got now about 50 years of experience in the practice of yoga, and had my first Samadhi experience, I would say, at my age of around 19 years old. And I started this around 8 or 9 years old, right? So about 10 years later, and now I'm 57 years old, right? So and I didn't go too deep into, to become established in Samadhi or become a monk. And of course, I had many opportunities to and invitations to join monasteries and so forth. But I wanted to live a normal life and, have normal relationships and, have like, normal food and so forth. And I drank alcohol. I used to smoke cigarettes, and I don't drink anymore. I haven't touched I don't drink now for 20 years and quit smoking about 19 years ago, right? But I smoked for about 23 years of my life, about a packet of cigarettes every day, right? And I made the wise decision, right, to quit it from for health purposes, of course. And it's not good, And that time I was 39 years old when I quit smoking, and I was 38 years old when I quit drinking, when I reverted or accepted formally the Islamic faith, then it's forbidden in that. And I said, no, if you accept a certain pathway, you follow, the rules and regulations of it. And I followed the rules and regulations of it, right? But before that, I mean, I consumed alcohol and so forth, right? Before I became a Muslim. And so what actually happens is when you're developing your Kundalini, so yes, the Kundalini awakening is the awakening. It's awake, right? You can have temporary samadhi experience to get the taste of it, and it's called an inner conjunction. And then, fortunately, in my case, I had no adverse experience because I'm practicing hatha yoga mainly and a little bit of meditation pranayama, for about 10 years before that happened. And I just tried someone asked me to, I went for some religious seminar, and they asked us, a 3 day seminar. And we stayed on, in that premises, and they asked us to recite a mantra, on a daily basis. And it was a high count, relatively speaking, because it took me like about 3 hours to finish the required minimum, at that time. And that's when I started to have, the bliss experiences and so forth. And there the required, rules. You not allowed, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sexual relations, only in marriage, right? So that was a bit difficult for me to sustain because I went into university life. And university life, you're living on campus, and firstly vegetarian, eating the campus food. If I was going to continue to be a vegetarian, I'm going to only eat toasted cheese and tomato, which they offered, and fried french fries, right, or fried potatoes. And I felt that that's not going to be good enough, nutrition for me to study and, be healthy. So I decided to, eat meat again. And also in university, living on campus, you exposed to campus lifestyle and alcohol and partying, and that's a major part of, university life. And but as I matured into, and later in my life, and I decided to develop the Kundalini, I noticed that if I consume, and this time I was not drinking alcohol and so forth, right? But with meat eating, if I ate meat, that when I like try to, raise the Kundalini or activate it, it was not activating when I ate meat. And 7 days later, then only I could activate it, then it would rise. And then this was an amazing phenomenon. I said, okay, and I tried it intermittently. Then I tried with chicken instead of meat. Then chicken, after 3 days, I could reawaken. So it closed the Kundalini completely for a period of 3 days. If I ate red meat, it can close the Kundalini for 7 days. And then when I ate fish, also about 3 days. And if I ate eggs or something for about a day, and if I had dairy products like milk, cheese, and yogurt and so forth, it dampened the energy, didn't close it, but dampened it, and it wasn't on its normal power for about 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours, right? After that, it was back to its, like the level that I was used to, controlling it. And this seemed very amazing, and that meant that I had to be, more or less, a vegan, if I, because I needed to, continue to develop it. And I was already on the master level, uh, and I was doing energy healing for a lot of people. And if I ate meat now for 7 days, I could not treat anyone. And what if there was an emergency? and I specialize in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses. I can't not be available, if for an emergency. And I decided to be a vegan. And but I was developing the Kundalini energy level by level by level, right? So all this has got to do with the TANTRIC6. So just bear with me, right? So as I was developing, and every 2 weeks it went up one higher increment, one higher increment. And as of today, I've reached level 727. And this I started to increase the increments 7 years ago, right? So, and then I noticed about a year ago, about 8 or 9 months ago, that someone offered me, and I stayed strictly away from, meat products and so forth. And this stayed strictly on vegan, on a vegan diet. And then someone offered me a chicken pizza and a Coke. They just bought it and left it and they went away. They were in a hurry and they bought it as a gift for me. And I was hungry at the time and I just thought, I don't feel to throw this, and I didn't have anyone to give it to. And I was feeling hungry and I said, okay, let me just eat it, right? So the energy will just dampen, for about 3 days, chicken pizza. But I ate it completely and I did my energy. There was no effect on the energy. It was fine. And actually, a few months before that, I was feeling that I would, benefit from introducing eggs into my diet. And whenever I had eggs, many years before that, about 7 years before that, it used to close the energy off, for a period of about, a whole day, 24 hours. But when I tried one or two and I felt it was not affecting, and then I wanted to boost my energy levels because I was in need a lot of energy because I was doing a lot of energy healing, and I felt the egg yellow will have all the vitamins and minerals in the natural form, and I also have a good protein quality because I was exercising with weights, and it would help, to have a good protein content, because having a vegan diet, there was no protein, no real, wasn't I wasn't exposed to a lot of protein. Of course, in chickpeas there's a lot of protein, but I decided to try this and tried for a while, and I was consuming an average of 12 eggs per day, right? Raw eggs. Like I put it in a shaker bottle, used to add some dairy. Um, they used to call it in Turkey. I was in Turkey at the time, call it ayran. It's like a liquid form of yogurt, thicker than milk and more liquid than yogurt itself. So it's a drinkable form, right? So it's sour in taste, but when you mix it with just 3 eggs in a 600 ml shaker, the taste of the eggs, raw eggs gone. And to have it raw is more nutritious, right? And so the taste, so I used to have 4 of those, right? And sometimes I have just 2 of those, and I used to just poach 6 of them and have that as a meal. So that I have my 12 a day, right? And it never affected the Kundalini energy. Whenever I pushed, I said, this is strange. And then I remembered that Swami Vivekananda, when he came to the West in the early 1900s, and there was a big uproar when when they found out that he was eating steak, right, beef, which is forbidden in India, amongst the Brahmana communities, and they said they're going to excommunicate him and so forth. And he says, yes, but there's hardly any vegetarian foods in this place, and he ate it, and it didn't affect him because he was fully enlightened, right? So what I noticed, because my Kundalini energy was on a high level, it's probably around 650 or close to 700 or something, at that time, earlier this year when I was trying all these things, eggs and so forth, it was not dampening. It was having no dampening effect. And then recently, about a month ago, a friend of mine, ordered a pizza for me, a vegetarian pizza, but it had an extra crust. It was a special. It's got a filling in the crust. So, but it was requested a vegetarian, a pizza. But when it arrived, in the crust was, meat in it, and I didn't want to throw it away, so I ate it, and it had zero effect on it didn't damp because the Kundalini energy level was on a much higher level. Now I'm on level 727 today. So I was probably around 700 and something, right? That time, about a month ago, when I had it, and it had zero effect on the negative, on dampening effect. So the vegetarian diet is for the beginning stages to allow the Kundalini energy to develop, but once it gains traction and high enough power level, then if you consume meat, it's going to have zero effect because that power is so high, right? So then these rules of not eating meat and not having alcohol, is when you are in the beginning stages. But when your Kundalini is awakened, of course it dampens it. But when it's developed to a higher level, to a high level, right, to almost the full level, or at least above 50%, right, the energy is so high it will not be influenced by it. Then, because I had the second part about alcohol, right? When I had my first Samadhi experience, at that time I was vegetarian and so forth, right? Following it, and then went into student life, and then I had to eat meat again, drinking alcohol. But when I drank alcohol, I never got drunk like the other people, right? Of course, I mean, I'm feeling the intoxication, but I was fully in my senses and my speech did not change. I didn't wobble and walk, and I didn't talk nonsense or I didn't talk more or less when I drank. I was exactly the same person whether I had alcohol or didn't have alcohol. And throughout that period, from the age of, I think, about 20 to about 38, the 18 years that I drank alcohol very regularly, I was known that no matter how much I drink, no one would know that I even had a drink unless they get the smell of the alcohol from my breath, because I talked totally normal, and I was normal, and I could drive normally, I could do everything normally. And yes, I enjoyed drinking and I enjoyed the feeling. Did I get any? Of course, I got the feeling, but it didn't alter my mind. And I had multiple Samadhi experiences during my drinking period when I used to drink and eat meat and so forth, because I already had my initial Samadhi experience. So it used to come. I used to go to prayers and I used to go for meditation classes and so forth, and sit and go into Samadhi, and was eating meat and drinking alcohol, regularly, almost on a daily basis, right? Because I was a business owner and I used to use that for and I found it very relaxing and easy to fall asleep because I used to work very long hours and come after meeting, back to back meetings very late at night and all fired up, and I needed to wake up very early in the morning by 4:30 a.m., 4 a.m., like that. I used to wake up between 4 and 4:30 a.m. and I'm only reaching home around 11:30. So I couldn't just fall asleep because I just coming from meetings and all pumped up. So if I had a few drinks, it used to relax me, and I was able to go to sleep easily, that way, and feel relaxed, and we work 7 days a week. But I never felt the effect. It never altered my state of mind. Now, what normally is supposed to happen, theoretically, from the yoga sciences, what I read, that when you consume alcohol, it lowers your consciousness level to your lower chakras. So if you are maybe on the normal zero level chakra, on the ground root chakra level, there is 7 chakras below the root, and these are can make you into a serial killer or do things, commit crime and become violent and so forth, right? So it brings up the negativity in you by lowering your consciousness to the lower levels. And that's why many people, they change and they can become aggressive or, do things that you would not normally do when you're sober. But me, whether I was drunk or sober, I still did the same things. It never influenced me, right? And that was a strange thing. And the only reason, when they said, and I used to drink almost every day, and I thought I was an alcoholic, because I enjoyed alcohol and drinking. And then when I came to Islam, said, don't drink, boom, one shot, I cut it. And now 20 years later, I haven't touched a drop of it, right? And I was fine. I didn't have withdrawal symptoms and so forth, from alcohol. But from tobacco, yes, I had withdrawal symptoms and so forth, right? But let's stick to just the tantra part. So when you reach a certain level of Kundalini awakening, right, and a certain power level, whether you eat meat or vegetarian diet doesn't affect your energy, your spiritual energy, or your spiritual progress. But if you are in the lower levels and not yet awakened your Kundalini or not yet developed to a high enough level, even though the Kundalini is awakened, not yet developed to a high enough level, it's gonna, if you're gonna consume meat and alcohol, it's gonna be detrimental. So this is a test. If you're gonna consume meat and alcohol now, that is it affecting you negatively, your spirituality? Are you on a high enough level? It's a test, number one. And secondly, that this is not a sin, that because this is what normal people engage in, only because you're doing in sadhana or religious practice, you're abstaining from it for spirituality purposes, but not to go to tell people that meat eating is a sin or drinking alcohol is a sin, which is very common amongst Hindu cultures, and also in the Islamic culture. Drinking alcohol is considered is completely forbidden, right? Not allowed, right? Although I don't agree with that terminology because using English language. So coming from Islamic, I'm a Muslim, right? And I don't drink, of course, right? But from an Islamic perspective, the word is not forbidden, it's used haram. The Arabic word is haram. So when people say haram, they translate it in English forbidden or extremely forbidden, untouchable. Haram is so bad for you that it is absolutely not, unless, of course, so even pork is forbidden, but except out of necessity, right? If there's nothing else and this is the only food available, then you're allowed to eat, under those circumstances. But ordinarily, no, right? There can be a case where for medical treatment, you needed to have the certain medication and it constitutes alcohol, or they're going to put you under and they're going to put this gas over your nostril and there's some alcohol element in it, or they're going to inject you with morphine for pain and maybe there's some alcohol element in some of the painkillers or the drugs that, for medical purposes, for the treatment purposes, okay, it's allowed, according. But the word haram does not mean forbidden, means extremely harmful for you. So for the average people, of course, you can see it lowers your consciousness level and brings out the negativity in you, and it's easy to lose control, and also there's an addiction element. So we found that also it's easy. There were some accounts of people who act as medium to the spirit world. They found that when they consume alcohol, it's easier for the spirits to enter the body and take over the body and speak, right? So I don't have too much knowledge on this, but I do know of a person, and he experienced that when he has alcohol, it's easy for the spirits to come and speak through him than when he's just totally sober. It's more difficult, right? So in that sense, from an Islamic point of view, that it says it's very harmful for you, but it's a warning. And if, because I met some Muslim, I lived in the in the Arabic countries for a long time studying, and so forth, the Islamic studies, and I did meet authentic Arab people, right? Original Arab people from that, indigenous from that country, very high level, this thing officials, but they were addicted to alcohol, and they said, "Is what is my opinion?" Because they respected my opinion because I studied very deeply, different religions, including Islamic religion. I said, look, the what the Quran says is, don't pray when you're drunk, right? So my opinion is, don't pray when you're drunk. When you're sober, then do your prayers, right? And that's it. And he said, I'm the first person that gave him light, because everyone else thought he's doing the biggest sin, he's going to hellfire and all that. I said, no, but the Quran just says when you're drunk, when you're intoxicated, don't pray. Pray when you're sober, right? So it doesn't say if you're someone who even touch alcohol or consume alcohol, you are not allowed prayer, and your prayer is not accepted for 40 days. So these are traditions and interpretations that's coming about by scholars, but no, in the Quran it says if you consume 40 days your prayer is not accepted. No, no, just when you're drunk, don't pray, right? And then, so also know that there is, because my mom warned me when I was a student, before I could go to university, two things can spoil a man: wine and woman, right? The two W's, wine and woman. are the two dangers that can destroy a man, right? So be always wary of these two. So I was very wary of alcohol as well as women, but never abstained from it. I knew it's got the potential. So I never got into fights or arguments when I was under intoxication, although I felt I knew it. I waited till I'm sober or the next day, and then bring the subject up. And I was very careful that I'm not as to my behavior and what I'm doing and so forth. And even with my relationships, with women, I was very cautious that I'm not getting twisted by them. If they were unfaithful to me, I had certain lines. So if you cross this line, I'm not going to accept or break that relationship, right? And if they not fully invested in the relationship or in the marriage for that matter, I'm not going to stay for the sake of society to keep a marriage because of social norms. No, if I feel you're not invested in the marriage, you're not in it, it's better we part. I don't want to be in a false relationship, right? So it's not surprising I've got 6 divorces, right? So, and of course, I'm not enemies with any of my ex-wives, right? We didn't part as enemies, and I can pick up the phone and call them anytime, and they can pick up the phone and call me anytime, right? So there were, legitimate reasons, for parting, and when I felt that I couldn't listen, and I moved on and so forth, right? And so coming back to this thing of intoxication and meat eating, that you are a religious figure. Now you reached a level where you abstained from it because you want to reach this level. But now that you reach that level, you must have it because you must this the people must not think that this is forbidden or it's a sin, because people eating meat, right? They're consuming alcohol. It's not a sin. It's only for you want to reach certain level of advancement. So coming now to the TANTRIC6, right? So you reach a certain level of the Kundalini development where you can have sex for 8 hours non-stop. Non-stop you can have 8 hours. So I've had multiple relationships, right? And there were stages, not always, but we had the time and we went, we were on vacation or something and we wanted to have real this thing. And also the person must be capable as well, because different women are different. Some women cannot handle, they have a limit how much of sex they can handle. They cannot, go on, endlessly. But some women, they can handle 24/7. They're ever ready, right? There are, different kinds. And I was fortunate to have both kinds. The ones that could handle and was into it, and I was, really, attracted to them and so forth. There were 2 such women, and I was able to go on for hours and hours and hours, and they had an amazing time going. Each orgasm that they had was going to a higher and higher level, and I was able to go on without having an orgasm and continue until I wanted to, right? And then with the other woman that had limited, I used to always wait for them to have an orgasm and then had my orgasm, because I know that they're not going to be able to handle more than that. And sometimes they took long. There were some marriages where the woman took a long time, like about 20 to 30 minutes, right? Which is relatively long, not 5, 10 minutes, right? Normal women, like if they fully aroused, they're going to have that orgasm quickly. So I was, throughout my marriage life, was able to control that. And, in most cases. And now when I reflect, when I used to tell some of my wives, that what you're talking about, that, not every day and, all this problem, because they said, not every day and, one day, yes, one day, and, they can't handle, too much. That's okay. I mean, I'm not going to have, but in my previous marriages, I used to have up to 8 hours and say 8 hours, that is impossible. And it's, well, I know what happened, right? And but I'm practicing yoga meditation for a long time, and I wouldn't say I've got absolute control. Like when the Kundalini energy is much, when it's fully evolved, then you got 100% control. Then you can engage in sex 20 anytime, all the time, and not have an orgasm. But feel the feeling of orgasm without coming, because you can transmute your sexual energy and it is an orgasmic feeling, but you're not ejaculating, right? Out externally, both male and female, right? This happens in the advanced level, that you reach that level where the transmutation of the sexual energy becomes so high, even the female, she completely dilates, right? And that, but there's no emission externally. That liquid, that discharge goes converted into spiritual energy and goes up into the brain, right? And then these people are in a state of, we'll say, ecstasy, in meditation. And then in that stage, they fully aroused and dilated. And the male is fully aroused as well, right, in the meditation. And he engages and he's in the ecstatic state, same ecstasy that you feel in orgasm, but much higher and continuous, not ending, right? And you can engage and it doesn't reverse, because it chooses the inner conjunction, then the outer emission. And then when you're having it, and your partner is also on that level, and they can, or even if they're not, but you can engage. So my younger brother was very advanced in Kundalini yoga, and he could at will, whenever he could have sex for as long as his wife could handle. And he didn't go into too much details, but he says he just controls it with his breath, you know, and he's fine, and the breath helps to control, whether you have an orgasm or don't have an orgasm. So, from a tantric sex point of view, where you're offering sex as part of your yogic advancement, is when you reach this level and you can go endlessly, not only hours. The only problem that I used to have in the 8 hours, like I used to really sweat. The bed sheets were wet with sweat. It's like you're like you doing a long distance marathon, right? You're running the 70-kilometer race or something, right? So of course you're not going that fast or anything, but you can pace yourself so that you can last longer, right? Your energy don't this thing, right? Drain out. So this is a evidence of your spiritual advancement and elevation, because they don't want, because you are celibate, right? Because they require you to be celibate in the beginning, and then they don't want you to say sex is something sinful, that actually when you come you can enjoy thousandfold better than the regular people. You're going to have amazing, you're going to be able to satisfy your partner, you know, in having multiple orgasms, right? So imagine you go with a regular woman who's like really a nymphomaniac, and she, you can go, and you can go second round and third round, because some women want to go again and again, right? And you can continue until they are tired, and you can go hours. Some women can go hours, and they fine with it, and you can carry on. You are a horse, you are called a stallion, right? The woman cannot forget you for the rest of their life, right? For the amazing time that you gave them, and they feel like really amazed, that you always, when you were with them, you brought them to this thing. So this level of maturity, sexual maturity in tantric sex, is referring to this level. That is my experience, and that is my opinion. And of course, I don't profess to be an expert in this field. There are many tantric scholars and so forth that have been listening, but no one, I believe, explained it in this way as I'm explaining. So, hope that information helps you. Take care of yourself always.